Hello, it is Christine here and I'm back for another episode of our stitch along, and we're moving on to braid stitch, a new stitch after quite a number of lovely stitch alongs focusing on blanket stitch and all its variations. So I've stitched out my little braid in lovely razzle dazzle thread, and now I'm just going to get ready, and I suggest you do the same. It's helpful if you've got two horizontal lines. I'm just going to be using this blue section and the line at the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to draw myself some lines that go up and down. Now the book A to Z embroidery doesn't have this step, but I know this is going to help to just get an even spacing when we do our braid stitches. So you can have them as close or as far apart as you want them. From my little testing, I found this gives a nice visual appearance for what I want, but feel free to experiment with closer or further apart. How many have I got? Maybe I'll do one more down this end. And then I'll probably end up doing the same on the bottom as well. We'll see how we go for time as to whether it's in this video or another video. So we're going to pop out at the bottom of the first line. So pop out here. Now I'm using a DMC perlé. Not recommended to use stranded cotton or embroidery floss, multiple bits of that for this. You want to have a single strand thread to use. So I'm going to make a little loop, and we're working from right to left. So I'm making a loop that goes to the left. I'm going to twist that loop over once, so it's now a crossed loop, if you can see that. So the thread crosses across itself. I'm then going to put my needle in, just slightly left to the line because we're doing our first stitch. So the needle's sitting over where the top of the loop is. And I'm going to bring the needle out just slightly to the left of the line at the bottom of where I've got the blue fabric. I'm going to tighten the thread around the needle, so the thread's now tightened in a loop around the needle, and I'm going to pass the thread underneath the tip of the needle, and I'm going to pull downwards and create my first loop, which you can see there. So it creates a loop like a O with a little dash through it. Now we're going to do the next step, which is we make that loop to the left, we cross it across itself, we hold it, and then we come in from the top. So coming in, so our needle's over the top of the loop and we're coming through the loop, and then we're going to pop out the bottom. We're going to pull the thread tight around the needle, and that's a really key step. The book doesn't talk about doing that, but I found my stitches when I wasn't doing that, they came out all floopy. And then we're going to pull downwards and get our next circle. So again, we're going to make a loop. We're going to twist that loop over to the left. We're going to pop in from the top. We're going to hold this to the left. We're going to pop out from the bottom, always just following that line that we've drawn as our guide. We're then going to tighten the thread around the needle. We're going to pass the thread under the bottom of the needle to the left. We're going to hold the thread while we pull down and just let it go towards the end. And again, we're going to make our loop. We're going to twist our loop over. We're going to bring our needle in at the top of our line. Let me just hold it up a bit in case you're struggling to see. So we're going to pop in at the top, and then we're going to pop out at the bottom, separate from the loop. But before we pull the needle through, we're going to make sure the thread is nice and tight around the needle. We're going to loop it under the bottom of the needle, and then at that point we pull our needle through and pull the thread down. So we're going to do that again. We just keep repeating this along the way, making our little crossed over loop, making sure our loop's sort of over where we need it, popping in from the top, popping out from the bottom, tightening our thread around the top of the needle, passing the thread under the bottom of the needle, holding that thread and then pulling the needle through, hoping that our thread doesn't get a knot. And then we're going to just keep doing that all the way down. So making our crossed over knot, popping in from the top, popping out from the bottom, tightening up the thread around the needle, passing it under the needle, and then pulling down. So again, making our loop and crossing it over itself, popping in from the top, popping out from the bottom, tightening our thread around the needle, giving it that little tug to know that it's tightened, passing it under the tip of the needle, holding it up, and then pulling the needle through. And again, making our loop, folding our loop on itself, coming in from the top, popping out from the bottom, tightening the thread around the needle, passing the thread under the tip of the needle, and then pulling it through to make our circle. I'm just going to get rid of that tail that was getting caught in it. So I hope you're all having a lovely day or a lovely evening. I'm filming this on Friday night because I realised I'd made a whole lot of the videos last weekend, but I am out of videos, so need one for tomorrow night, for Saturday night for me, well, and it'll be Saturday morning for some of you. And I'll have to have a look ahead at what the next stitch after this one is. I think we might be onto bullion actually, but I've also got some additional bee stitches that we will pick up at the end that Kimberly suggested from her resources. So thank you very much for that, Kimberly. We're going to have such a wealth of amazing stitches by the end of this. So again, just popping through, tightening up the thread, passing it under the tip of the needle, and then pulling that needle through. You just get that lovely, lovely row of sort of O's, I guess. So again, making my looped knot, popping in at the top, popping out at the bottom, tightening up the thread around the top of the needle, passing it under the tip of the needle, and then pulling through. But for me, marking those those intervals on really helps me, because otherwise I kind of, once I've got the thread down, it's hard for me to see exactly where I need to position my needle. So this just makes it more relaxing for me. But if you're good at judging those distances just by eye when you're working, then that's fine as well. So tightening it there, passing it under, and then pulling through. Then we'll do another loop, coming in from the top, popping out from the bottom, tightening the thread, passing it up, pulling the needle through. Hopefully the more and more I say it, the more likely that I will be to remember this stitch and able to reproduce it when I want to call it into action. Okay, tightening it at the top and tightening it, pulling it up from around the bottom and then pulling it through. So that one just got a little bit out of whack. Let's just make sure they're all just sitting nicely at the end. There we go. And so then at the end, we just anchor down, I think, that last little stitch, and we can tie it off at the back. And how interesting is that at the back? It's just a straight up and down stitch. You would not think that when you see the complexity on the front. That's why it's always fascinating to look at the back of pieces. It's going to... Okay, I'll save that bit of yellow for something else, and I'll get myself a... Will we do a different colour? Maybe we'll do a different colour, do a blue. Right, I'm just going to have a look down in my box down here. I've got this blue. Oh, that's my blue variegated. Don't know. Won't use that one for this, I don't think. Won't use that one. That's always trouble to me. Oh, I might give this one a go. I think that's even thicker than my other. And in fact, I've got a piece here. Will that be long enough? Let's see. Oops, got a bit of yarn there. So let's thread it up. We'll draw our little lines again, and then we'll see how far we can get with this piece of yarn. Okay. So I hope you're having a lovely weekend if you're already into your weekend by the time you're watching this, or hope you have lovely plans if you're yet to embark on your weekend. Probably do that to there, maybe one more at this end. Okay, so we're going to pop ourselves out at the bottom of that line. We're going to make a loop to the left. We're going to fold that loop over itself like that. We're then going to just pop in at the top just slightly to the left of the line because we're doing that first stitch. Pop out slightly left at the bottom. Tighten the thread around the needle at the top. Pass the thread under the bottom of the needle, and then we're going to pull it through to get our first little loop. And then we're going to do the same, make a knot, oh not a knot, sorry, a loop, cross over the loop. Pop our needle in at the top, out at the bottom, pull the thread tight around the needle at the top, pass it under the bottom, and pull our needle through. Do the same for the next one. Do a crossed over loop, pop in at the top, pop out at the bottom, pull the thread around tight around the needle. Just pop that up a smidge. Pass this. Oops, that's what I've done wrong. I actually didn't pop, I popped out in the loop. I was looking at it going, that looks strange. So always make sure you're separate from the loop when you pop out. Tight around the top, pull it up, and out you pop. And again, make our knot, our loop, cross our loop over. So you've got a crossed loop. Pop in from the top, pop out from the bottom. But make sure you're separate from the loop when you pop out. Tighten it at the top, pass it under the bottom, and then pull it through. Another one, loop, cross it back. Pop in at the top, pop out at the bottom, pull the thread tight, pass the thread under the bottom of the needle, and try not to catch the side of your fabric and pull it through. Again, loop, fold our loop over itself. And then pop our needle in from the top. Oops, slightly. Pop it out at the bottom, but separate from. Make the thread tight around the top of the needle, pass it under the bottom of the needle and bring it through. And I'm just going to let my needle spin around and take a bit of tension out of itself. And that one I might have pulled just a tiny bit too tight, possibly. There we go. Sometimes they sort of just move a little bit out of shape, but you can put them back into shape Okay, so we're going to do a loop to there, cross our loop over. So you're getting plenty of practice tonight, seeing it get done, and plenty of chat time for those of you joining in the premiere. So make it tight around the top, loop it under the bottom, and then pull the loop through. Break the loop, cross the loop over itself, pop in from the top, pop out from the bottom, tighten the thread around the top of the needle, pass it under the bottom of the needle, hold it while you pull the needle through. Hopefully I can get this row done. I think I should be able to get it done with the leftover thread. Oops, from the top. Hang on, what have I just done there? Make the loop. Always go back to first principles. If you get a bit stuck and go, oh, something doesn't look right, just go back to sort of the next logical step. Coming through from the top, popping out from the bottom, pulling the thread tight around the top, and then bringing it underneath the needle. Okay, and another loop. Loop, fold it to the left, pop in from the top, pop out from the bottom, pull it tight, twist it round, and then pull it through. Okay, do our little looped loop. Come in from the top, pop out from the bottom, oops, about there. It's getting harder because we're now down to a small bit of thread, so when I'm pulling and tightening, it is quite tricky. So I might make this the last stitch I do with you guys, because I'm sure it's just going to get a little bit trickier from here to just finish those last few off, or I might have to get a skerrick of other thread. But there you go. That is the braid stitch done in 2 different colours, and it's a nice little fun border, sort of dimensional, pops up a bit from the page. So there it is. I'll finish these last ones off. I think, I am going to have to rethread. Bit annoying, but that's okay. And I will see you tomorrow for, is it bullion? Let's have a look in the book. It is bullion. We are on to bullion knots. And then we're going to be doing a rose. And so, prepare for a few bullion, and then... Is that still? Oh, yeah, that's still the bullion rose. That looks quite intense. It's a few pages worth. And then we'll be doing, there's another rose. So there's actually 2 roses. So we can do 2 roses. And then there's rose buds. And then there's a rose with a padded satin centre. And then there's bullion knot bears and a bullion knot bow. My goodness. And a bullion knot detached chain combination. So we've got a fair bit of bullioning coming up. So you might want to have a bit of bullion space. Might want a larger piece if you're wanting to, put all of those together. So I'll leave that at that. Hope you're having a great weekend or about to, start a really great weekend. Take care, folks. Bye.